What's going on, guys? Balkan Architect here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about massing. Now, massing in Revit is what allows you to create those amazing warped forms that are just look so cool, and everybody loves that kind of wild organic architecture. But also it is notoriously complicated to work with, and it's always a headache, and it's always extremely hard to get to the shape that you want to have. So in this tutorial I'm going to be sharing some 5 tips or tricks or hacks in Revit that are going to help you out when working in the massing environment. But before I get started, I would just like to ask you to like this tutorial. It helps me out a lot, and if you haven't already, I suggest you subscribe because I make useful Revit tutorials each week. Also, if you're interested in some advanced courses, for example for massing, I've got a course, or actually 2 courses on adaptive components that make working in the massing environment much more powerful and interesting, and it gives you or allows you to create some wilder shapes. I've got those 2 courses plus like 16 advanced Revit courses up on my Patreon, so check that out. Also there you can find all of my Revit project files as well as the ones that I'm going to be creating in this here Revit tutorial. Okay, without further ado, let's get into this. So as you can see, here I am in Revit, and I'm just going to be using the architectural template. Now you might be tempted to go with the conceptual mass template. I usually prefer working with the architectural template and doing all of my massing as in-place mass. It's a bit different than regular massing. You don't have that kind of parametric component, but you can kind of place your mass within some sort of topography, so that's really useful. So the first thing I want to talk about is the mass visibility or show mass. So here we have this show mass settings, and if I start the in place mass, you're going to get this menu, and it basically says that it's going to turn this button on. So if I just go here, close, as you can see now it's on. That's basically because we need to turn on show mass in order to have mass visible so we can work on it. So I'm just going to turn it on. Let's start a new mass. Let's call it mass 1. And now let's create, I'm just going to go with a simple rectangle. I usually like working in 3D when in the massing environment. So a simple rectangle, I'm just going to select it and go here into create form. Let's make it a bit taller perhaps, and let's go finish mass. Now usually what you do with the whole massing workflow is you create some sort of a shape, and then you assign walls and roofs or curtain systems to that. So you can go over here to massing inside. We have mass walls, and just picking by face, let's go maybe into shaded or even realistic. Yeah, so there's your mass, and here's your mass wall. Now if I go here to massing inside and turn off show mass, and as you can see, the mass is gone. We can't see it, we just see the wall that we've created. Now I can turn it back on. Now there might be some confusion. Now if I delete this wall and I can select the mass, go to edit in place, and I can select this whole element, so I can just select the whole rectangle, and here we have an option to assign material to it. So if I go here and assign some material, let's see, I'm just going to go with aluminum, and if I save this, so finish mass, as you can see now it even changed the color. It's in that like aluminum color, and even now, even though that this mass has its material, if I go here to massing inside and turn off show mass, it is going to disappear. So just keep that in mind. Even if you think that you've created something that's solid just because you've assigned material to it, whenever you turn off show mass, it is going to disappear. So just keep that in mind. Okay, the second tip is going to be editing massing. So I'm just going to select this, go back into edit in place, or actually let me go back a few steps before I assign the material. Okay, now let's cut a hole into this thing. So to do that, I'm just going to basically set the work plane first. So let's set the work plane to here, and now I'm just going to go with a simple circle. And whenever working like this, I like to first assign the work plane by going here to set work plane, and then I make sure that draw on work plane is selected so I can make a shape exactly on that work plane. Another alternative way to do is to go to draw on face. So it basically works like SketchUp, so you just come to the face, and as you can see, the face will highlight, and then you can basically model on that face. So let's do another circle here, and now I'm just going to select these two circles, hold the control key to select both of them, go here to create form, and let's go with a void form, and there we go. We've got a hole into this inside of this mass. But the good thing about massing is you can actually edit everything, and it looks at both of these shapes as some sort of a blend. Now in massing you don't really have blends, you just have that little like create form option, but it actually does work like a blend. So what I can do is I can select this thing and go into edit profile, and then I can select maybe the upper profile, and as you can see over here I can actually make changes. So I can actually, I don't know, move something like this. And now of course it's just going to give us this warning because it can't keep the elements joined, but if I were to make maybe some minor change that doesn't affect the void, it's going to work like that. So you can actually edit the profiles. Same thing goes with this void form. So if I select the actual like void just by hitting the tab key, so you just come in close, you hit the tab key a few times, and then you can select this element, go into edit profile, and now you get the void. So now you can select this profile and you can make some changes. So you can either make it a bit smaller, so let's say it's 1000. Also you can select it and move it to a different location. And when I hit finish, there you go, now it's changed. So that's how you can make some edits to your mass. So even though you've created the mass, it's not final, you can make some edits like that, or you can even just find points and then move those around, and there you go, you can kind of change things around. Okay, so we've talked about setting the work plane, and you can always set the work plane like that, but let's do some sort of a weird work plane. For example, what I'm going to do is just go here into south elevation, go to work plane, and I'm actually going to create a new one. So you can go here to work plane, alternatively use the shortcut RP, and I'm just going to do a work plane like this. And it's an angled plane, so I'm just going to name it plane. Hit enter. Okay, so we've got this angled work plane, and if I go into 3D, I don't really know where it is, and let's say I want to work on that work plane. So a way that I can visualize it here is I can go here to set work plane, and let's go with reference plane. Hit enter. Okay, now it's selected, and now I can go here to show work plane, and it's actually going to highlight it like this in blue. Now, when working with work planes, I prefer to basically model elements perpendicular to the work plane. So if I were to model something here in level 1, I would probably go to some of the elevations or to some of the floor plans like level 1 or level 2 or the site plan, because then I look at it perpendicularly. Now here with this angled work plane, I can't really pinpoint a perpendicular view to it, but luckily we have this viewer option. So if I maybe move this off to the side a little bit, go to viewer, and as you can see, now we have a perpendicular view to our work plane, and we can actually zoom out, zoom in, and here we can model. So you just, let's make it a bit smaller and go and let's select one of these tools. So let's do a rectangle, I don't know, like this, and there you go, it appears on that work plane. Or actually it's a bit lower just because here we have this draw on face option. So if I go undo and make sure that I'm selecting the draw on work plane, and now I can actually draw on that work plane, and as you can see, it's actually angled. So you can do something like this, go into trim and extend this. Now I can exit out of this, go here to the 3D view, and as you can see now that's modeled on this work plane, and now I can select it and turn it into a form. And there we go, we've got some sort of a solid form. Now I'm just going to select the other side, just like this, maybe make it go inside of this. And actually when you model on top of a work plane and then you move around that face, it's actually going to pull the whole work plane with it. So just keep that in mind. Okay, now I don't really need to see this work plane anymore, so I can just turn off show work plane, and then perhaps I can join these two elements just like that. Okay, Moving on, let's talk about saving this mass in Revit. So we've been working for a while and we've been constantly inside of the basically the mass design environment within Revit that makes sure that you have these create tools instead of those architecture tools. And let's say we want to save this project. So if I were to go here to save, okay, it gives me the basic options. I can go to my computer or maybe desktop, and here I can save it as project 2. So if I hit save, you're going to get this warning. So it says changes made to the editing mode will not be saved. The project will be saved as it was before you entered this mode. So what does this basically mean? So you start a new project and then you go to in-place massing, and this is the previous thing that we had before we went into the mass and did all of those voids and editing of the mass. So this was the last time we were in the regular Revit architecture design environment. So it's going to save the changes that we had before we went into in-place massing for the last time. So if you hit save over here, it's not going to save any of the previous changes. So I'm just going to cancel out of that. It's going to say file not saved. So what you need to do to save your mass is to go finish mass. So it saves the shape, and then you go to save. You save it over here, hit save, and there you go. So just make sure that you don't stay within the massing environment for too long. So if you go here into edit in place, so if I were to work right now, then go save, then work again, then go save, and in case computer crashed, I wouldn't really save any of those changes because it only saves after you hit finish mass. Now it saves the changes inside of the massing environment, and now you can hit save to change those changes permanently on your project or on your Revit project. So just keep that in mind when saving. Also, one more thing that you might want to know is when adding materials to these masses. So if I were to go here to massing inside, here we have a roof, and let's say we want to apply the roof to this here surface. I select the surface, I go create roof, and as you can see, the roof is going from that surface and then down. But let's say that's not what I want to have. I want it to go up. So it's really a simple fix. You just need to select your roof, and then here you have picked faces location, and you can either set it to face on top of roof or face on bottom of roof. So I'm just going to go to bottom of roof, hit apply, and then now as you can see, it's on top of that surface. So just keep that in mind when working with roofs, so you can actually have it on a correct plane. Okay, so that covers the tips, but I'm actually going to give you one more bonus tip, and that's you don't really have to do in-place massing all the time. If you're working with some simple mass, what you can do is go here to insert, load family. Let's go with massing. Here we have mass, and you actually have some masses loaded in here. So if you want to create an arc, something like this, a box, a cone, or something like any of these shapes, you can actually find them and load them into the project. You don't really have to model them. So just keep in mind, just go through all of these shapes. So if you ever want to model something like this, you don't really have to go inside of the massing environment. You can just go to insert, and then you can load something like this into your project. So let's go with Gable, hit open, and now you can just go here to component and place it over there, and it's actually fully parametric. So if you change some of these values, it's going to change the whole shape. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to model everything inside of the massing environment. Some elements you can just load inside of Revit from the insert tab. Okay, so that covers all of the tips and tricks for massing for this course. And again, as I said, if you want some advanced courses, check out my Patreon, first link in the description. Also there, I'll have this project file as well as all of my other Revit project files, over 300 files so far. Okay, so that covers this tutorial. Thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed and learned something new. And make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for any future tutorials, make sure to leave them in the comment section below. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.